This is Wilbur. Prior to joining the family here at One Heart Wild, Wilbur had a troubled life. He was feral for a number of years after a history of abuse and neglect. Much of his experience included both trauma and suffering and resulted in great fears. After a couple of weeks, workers here at the sanctuary started taking Wilbur for walks, which at first were frantic, nervous, and constantly searching for escape routes. But then came the day that Wilbur took a walk on his own and everybody celebrated. He was finally home.
Truly.
Well, clearly, Wilbur is doing beautifully here at One Heart Wild. This is amazing to see.
He is, and we have loved having him here. He was kind of the first outside of horses rescue transfer that we brought into the sanctuary.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about how you did get started here.
So it was really not planned. One thing led to another. We started with an intention to do equine-assisted therapeutic interventions, and at the time we had a couple horses and we had our goats and chickens. And we noticed that some of our smaller, younger clients were really drawn to the chickens and the goats, and we really hadn't planned for that.
Sure.
But we followed our clients and started to incorporate those other animals into the work that we do, and then realized there was a need for special needs animals, and our bylaws state that the animals that come to us don't come from the public, that they come from reputable animal rescues that have difficult to place animals, and they transfer them to us. So they'll have medical issues or behavioral issues or maybe their age issues, something that would make them less than desirable for the general public to adopt.
And the interesting thing I know about your sanctuary is they're coming here to stay.
Yeah.
They're not being rehomed after their visit here. This is home.
Right, absolutely. And that is another unique piece about us in the work that we do and for the animals. Once they get here, they're home, and they're here for the rest of their lives, and that gives us an opportunity to provide a stable social environment for them and for the people that come to work with us.
Sure.
So the horses aren't coming and going, competing. They're not being bought and sold, or they're here and they stay here. They make their friends and they get to keep their friends. And the same with everybody else. They get to know each other, they know the routine, they know who lives next to them, they make their friends. We don't interrupt those friendships. In fact, we really support those friendships. And that makes us, unique in the field.
Absolutely. And I think really you can feel it as soon as you step on foot at the farm here. There's not this busy, bustling, fast pace to it. Yeah. It's really exactly the opposite. It is so peaceful. You feel it from the animals. You hear the birds chirping. Everything is quiet and serene. And you really see it in their behavior. Yeah. I notice that as well.
Yeah. That, again, it wasn't anything that we set out with a clear intention to create. But as we're paying attention to the animals and paying attention to our clients and the volunteers, we are supported by a large group of volunteers, and that makes this all work. And they comment to us how peaceful this feels to them and how important it is to have this experience in their lives. So we just kind of paid attention to what was happening and then kept doing more of that as we realized things that we really hadn't planned.
I think that shows really that this has been such an organic growing of the sanctuary for the animals and for the people who are here. I see volunteers all over helping to just keep things going. There's a lot of work. It takes a lot of work to keep a place like this going.
Yeah, and that was another happy accident. When you have horses, typically the volunteer draw is teenage girls, and we fully expected that to happen, and that has happened to a smaller degree. But the surprise for us is the number of seniors and the number of adults that have always wanted to be around horses or have always loved farm animals and have been busy with their careers and gotten carried away with raising kids and whatever else happened in their life, and then this place showed up on their radar, and they have loved being a part of it. And that's a whole different experience to provide a place for seniors to come together. We have a senior day on Tuesday, And it's become not only a place that they love to be in and interact with the animals, but they become friends outside of their work here. And that is a super important piece for them.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and it really connects you back to the community. So then not just
Yeah.
because of the work that you're doing here with the animals, you're well known, I'm sure, in that community, but the people who come here to volunteer,
Yeah.
you've got a really strong connection with the community. And I understand you have programs even of going into the schools.
Yes. Yep, we do. We have a program called Animals and Empathy, and that is mainly elementary school, although we have started piling it a little bit with the junior high schools, but solid in the elementary schools. And that's all built on social emotional skill building around the human-animal bond. So some of the animals, the smaller animals, our chickens, our bunnies, the dogs will go into the classroom a couple times for the series of 6 that we do. And then on the final meeting of that series, they come out for a field trip, and they have known all of the animals through a little presentation that we do before they come out, and we leave them with a writing prompt about who they are, their best friends, something unique about them, how they ended up here. And the kids then choose an animal that they want to write a story to, and they come out and they read the story to the animal. And the thing that's been so amazing to us about that experience is the kids identify with someone's story, like Wilbur's story. He's been neglected, he was abused, he was scared and lonely and found a safe place to be. We have animals with stories of anxiety and stress and loss and loneliness and difficulty making friends, and kids relate that to their own lives and the stories that we have listened to, and then they leave them with us if Sparky or Izzy doesn't eat them, have been so touching and meaningful to us.
Oh, I bet. And it really is quite an assortment of animals that you have here. You touched on it just a bit, but could you give us a rundown of who's here?
So we have 10 horses, and that is our max. So we're very cognizant of our limits in terms of being able to house them in a healthy way. So 10 is our max for horses. We have 3 goats, and we have our chicken population fluxes. Right now we're about 17. We've been as many as 30, and we have 2 big enclosures for them. We have 2 pigs, and we have 6 bunnies, and we have 4 guinea pigs, and we have 5 chinchillas. Cat. I think that's it.
A couple dogs.
Yes, we've got our dogs.
It's amazing. Well, it's really fascinating to visit here to learn that the animals have such a safe place to grow and heal and really kind of become more who they are. I think it's such a neat philosophy, and it's that difference that we talked about coming on to the sanctuary grounds, is that there's no bustle. They have that peace, and you really empower them to make choices for themselves as animals. And we as humans have been so slow to catch on to treating them exactly as they deserve to be.
Absolutely. So autonomy is huge.
Yeah.
Transspecies psychology is kind of the foundation of everything that we do in our philosophy. And that just says that the brain in his head and the brain in my head are more alike than different.
Yeah.
And we share more of an emotional life than we differ.
Sure.
And so being respectful of their feelings and their desires and their preferences, and giving them the opportunity to have some autonomy. In much of our human and animal relationship life, the non-human animals don't have a lot of autonomy. We tell them where to go, we tell them how to be, we tell them what we expect from them. If they don't want to do that, then there's usually consequences, and usually they're physical consequences.
Sure.
And that's just not part of how we interact with the animals here. We really try as much as possible and is safe to give them autonomy over who they sleep next to and how they interact with people, and being respectful about whether or not they're comfortable and their boundaries. So it's not just about the human and us and what we need, it's also about them, and are they comfortable, and is it mutually beneficial? That's
Sure.
kind of the foundation piece for us as well. Is it is everybody getting something good from that interaction.
And I think just one visit here tells you that science pans out. Everybody here is peaceful. It's clear that they are healing, that they feel safe, that they do feel comfortable, and it definitely is just a joy to visit with you today. Thank you for inviting us, and I'm so excited to go learn more. So we got to learn, Brenda, a little bit about the animal side of healing that happens here, but I'd really like to hear more about the human healing that happens at One Heart Wild.
Absolutely. You know, the stories of the animals that show up are very much similar to the stories of the humans that come out here for services. So, history of many of the folks we work with have a history of trauma, or there's been abuse, or maybe they're dealing with grief and loss. But what we know of, similar to the animals, what happens in relationship, what gets wounded in relationship also is healed in relationship.
True.
So for many people who come out here, they have tried many different avenues of trying to get help and support, and it hasn't worked. And so they come here because of the interest in the animals. Oftentimes there's a greater safety in hanging out with the animals. And for many parents often that bring their kids here, it's like we don't know what else to do.
So really, when we're talking about healing and involving the animals, I think a lot of us on the outside, we see things like riding a horse and that being some kind of therapy, but that's really not what's happening here.
Right.
Could you explain to me a little bit about what that connection with animals looks like therapeutically?
Absolutely. So when someone comes out for the very first time, we will walk around the sanctuary and we're just learning in terms of what has been happening for them, and they start to meet the animals. And the animals are great teachers around learning emotional regulation, around learning boundaries, and also learning how to build a new relationship that is safe and loving and respectful.
Yeah.
So we will walk around and they'll start to meet the different animals, and oftentimes as a residence there's a connection with one of the particular animals that are here. And initially when we started out, it was more about doing equine therapy. And the chickens taught us that it's so much bigger than that.
Sure.
We had a young man that was here who was terrified of horses, and he directed us to the chickens. And so it's by being in relationship with the chickens that we were able to build a relationship with him.
Sure.
And it's exactly what's happening right now in terms of who is Ollie. Ollie is, he's a 3-year-old cow that came to us with some medical needs. And a history of his own medical neglect. And because we take in animals that do have medical needs, a sanctuary sought us out for him. And it's exactly what we're doing with Ollie today, getting to know who Ollie is, and Ollie getting to know you and you him. And starting to build a bridge between the humans with the animals. The animals are also clearly our partners. We have Stella that's coming to visit us. The animals at this sanctuary, in the work that we do with healing humans, they are our partners. We trust them, we partner with them. They're not a tool that we use. We really rely on their wisdom and their guidance and their knowing, because they're social and emotional beings like we are. And so I absolutely trust them in our partnership to guide in terms of what happens in relationship with that human and what happens during their time out here.
Sure. I think what you touched on was really beautiful, that animals are very clear communicators of their boundaries, of how they feel in a situation. And that really teaches us, whether we're adults or children, that we can do the same thing. We can set those clear boundaries and that it's okay and healthy to do so. Absolutely.
And the other piece that happens for I think so many teenagers, but adults too, that come out, they don't have to worry about their hair color or their body size or the judgment that comes up around who they are as they're relating with the animals. Those judgments show up so much between humans, but when it comes to the animals, a lot of those fears and those judgments just kind of get laid aside.
Sure.
And they get to groom a horse, or they get to feed the chickens, or they get to play with the goats. And so that fear of judgment and is it going to be safe for me to be here subsides as they begin to connect with the animals.
Absolutely.
So.
Even I feel that. I know that Ollie doesn't care at all about my overalls right now, but I still get to feel the joy of his sandpaper tongue.
Right.
and and clearly he is not in a distressed situation right now. He is happy to be having some community of his own, making friends and making connections, and that is, it feels, like I said, even to me, as such a healthy thing to remind us that we can connect as human beings. As Drea touched on, that trans-species psychology, we're the same.
Right. We are the same, and the resiliency that we see in the animals that are out here, as they get settled and they know this is their forever home, that they're safe, they're taken care of. We see the same resiliency with the humans. As they come out and they build those relationships, we see incredible resiliency with the humans that come out here, and they begin to heal in relationship.
What a unique space this is here at One Heart Wild. We're so grateful for coming here today to really experience this for ourselves and hopefully to share it with our community so that they can get further involved.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us,
appreciate
Brenda.
that. Yeah, thanks for hanging out with Ollie today.
There's nowhere else I'd rather be. Thank you.
You bet.
It has been such a beautiful experience to visit One Heart Wild here today, to learn about all the healing that takes place both for humans and for the animals here, and just to witness the peacefulness and the serenity and the joy that lives right here at the sanctuary has really been humbling. If you'd like to get involved in the community, you can do so. Check out their website. You're welcome to take a tour of the sanctuary. You can volunteer, or if you'd like to support them financially, there's an opportunity for you to do that as well. Stay tuned to their Facebook and Instagram pages to learn more about any upcoming events or opportunities to get involved with this amazing work. Thanks for joining us on this episode of BKAT Presents.